The cold does something to the world. It quiets everything down. Streets empty. People stay inside. The snow muffles sound until you're convinced you're the only person left on Earth. But sometimes, in that silence, you realize you're not alone. And in our connected age, the threats don't always come through the door. Sometimes they come through the screen, through the speaker, through the technology you trusted to keep you safe. These are 3 true stories from people who discovered that the most dangerous thing about being isolated in winter is finding out someone's been watching the whole time. This happened during the polar vortex in January 2 years ago, and I still haven't reconnected my smart home devices. I'm 31 and work remotely as a software developer, which meant I was one of the lucky ones who didn't have to brave the -40 wind chills. I'd set up my apartment like a tech showcase. Smart thermostat, smart locks, voice-controlled lights, a whole home assistant system. The kind of setup where I could adjust the heat or check my front door camera without getting off the couch. When you live alone, that convenience feels like company. The storm hit hard that Wednesday night. I remember watching the temperature drop on my phone, the thermostat struggling to keep up. I ordered groceries through an app, messaged my mom that I was hunkered down, and settled in for what I assumed would be a boring few days. That's when I noticed the first thing. Around 11 p.m., my living room lights flickered off, then back on. I figured it was a power surge from the storm. But then my smart speaker activated. The blue ring lit up like I'd said the wake word. I hadn't said anything. "I'm sorry. I didn't catch that," it said into my silent apartment. I told myself it was a glitch. These things happen. I went to bed and tried to forget about it. The next morning, I woke up freezing. The thermostat had been turned down to 55 degrees. I checked the app, and there it was. A log entry at 3:47 a.m. showing a manual adjustment. But I'd been asleep. I lived alone. I changed my passwords immediately. New email password, new smart home password, 2-factor authentication on everything. I figured maybe I'd been hacked by some bored teenager in another country. An annoyance, but fixable. That night, around 2 a.m., my speaker activated again. Now playing, Watching You Sleep By. And then it cut out. I sat up in bed. My heart was pounding. I grabbed my phone and checked the playback history. Nothing. No record of any command. But I'd heard it. I know I heard it. I disconnected the speaker and shoved it in a closet. I barely slept. The next day, I started noticing things. My front door camera's motion alerts had been turned off. I didn't do that. The smart lock log showed a failed entry attempt at 4:12 a.m. Someone had tried an old code I'd used when I first set up the system. A code I'd only ever shared with one person, my ex-boyfriend, who I'd broken up with 8 months earlier. My blood ran cold. I scrolled through months of camera footage I'd never thought to check. And there he was, walking past my building at night, sometimes stopping, sometimes looking up at my window. The footage was time-stamped. He'd been doing this for weeks. I called the police that afternoon. They couldn't do much. He hadn't technically broken any laws by walking on a public sidewalk. But they advised me to change all my access codes and document everything. That night, during the worst of the storm, I got a text from an unknown number. "I know you unplugged the speaker. I can still see you." I checked every device, every camera, every app. And then I found it. A device connected to my network I didn't recognize. It had been added 3 months ago when he'd come by to pick up some stuff he'd left behind. He'd set up a hidden access point through my own router. I ripped every smart device out of that apartment. Called my landlord the next morning about breaking my lease. The police took my evidence, and I got a restraining order. But here's what still keeps me awake. During the polar vortex, with the city shut down and everyone stuck inside, I was trapped in my apartment with someone who had complete access to my entire life. Every light, every lock, every camera, and he'd been watching for months. This happened about 2 years ago during a blizzard in upstate New York, and I still think about it every time. I use the internet for anything. I'm 26 and was working as a freelance graphic designer, which meant a lot of late nights and too much time on forums and Reddit. I'd gotten into some weird corners of the internet. Not illegal stuff, just strange communities. Lost media hunters, ARG solvers, the kind of rabbit holes you fall into at 3 a.m. when you should be sleeping. I used pseudonyms, never shared personal info, thought I was being careful. That winter, I was staying at my family's cabin in the Adirondacks, trying to finish a project with a tight deadline. The cabin had spotty Wi-Fi and no neighbors for miles. Perfect for focusing, or so I thought. The blizzard rolled in on a Thursday, dropping 2 feet of snow overnight. I wasn't going anywhere for at least 3 days. That's when I noticed the first message. It was in a private forum I used for a lost media project. A new user with no post history had sent me a direct message. "Nice cabin. Bet it's cold up there." I figured someone from the forum was messing with me. I ignored it and kept working. An hour later, another message. "I like the blue sweater you're wearing." I looked down. I was wearing a blue sweater. My laptop camera had a cover on it. I checked my phone. Camera covered. I walked through the cabin checking windows, but the snow was piling up and visibility was maybe 20 feet. I couldn't see anything in the whiteout. I told myself someone was guessing. Blue is a common color. It was just a troll who'd gotten lucky. That's when the third message came. "You should really lock that back door." I hadn't locked the back door. I ran to it, threw the deadbolt, and grabbed a kitchen knife. I was alone in a cabin with no cell service and someone who apparently knew exactly what I was doing. I shut down my laptop and sat in the dark, watching the windows. The storm was screaming outside, snow piling against the glass. Hours passed. I didn't sleep. Around 4 a.m., I heard something on the back porch. A thump, then another, like footsteps. I stayed frozen, gripping the knife, watching the back door. The thumping stopped, and then I saw it. A face, pressed against the window, fogging the glass with breath, just watching. I screamed. The face pulled back into the white and was gone. I spent the rest of the night in the bathroom with the door locked. When morning came and the storm had died down enough to see, I went outside. There were footprints leading up to the back door. They circled the cabin twice before approaching the window where I'd seen the face, and then they led into the woods and disappeared. I hiked 3 miles through knee-deep snow to get cell service and called the police. They found the footprints, but nothing else. When I got home and checked my accounts, I found that someone had been logging my IP address from that forum for weeks. They'd traced it to the region, then to the cabin's internet provider. One of the forum moderators had access to that data, and their account had been active during every single incident. The police couldn't prove anything. The moderator denied everything and deleted their account. But someone had tracked me across the internet, followed my digital footprint to a remote cabin in the mountains, and showed up during a blizzard when they knew I'd have no way to call for help. I don't use forums anymore. I don't share my location with anyone, and I never go anywhere remote without a satellite phone, because someone out there knows how to find people, and they're patient enough to wait for the perfect moment. This happened last winter, and I'm still not sure what to make of it. I'm 34, and I work as a travel nurse, which means I spend a lot of time driving through unfamiliar places. I'd taken a contract in rural Minnesota, about an hour from the nearest city. The job was fine, but the December nights were brutal. Below zero with wind chills that made your bones ache. I relied heavily on my GPS to navigate the back roads between the hospital and my rental. One night, I finished a 12-hour shift around 2 a.m. The roads were empty and iced over, the kind of conditions where you grip the wheel and pray. I punched my address into the GPS and started driving. About 15 minutes in, the GPS told me to take a turn I didn't recognize, a gravel road that seemed to lead into nothing. I hesitated, but the screen showed it as a shortcut, shaving 10 minutes off my drive. I was exhausted. I took the turn. The road got worse, narrower, trees pressing in on both sides. My headlights barely cut through the darkness. "In 1 mile, turn left onto County Road 7, the GPS said. There was no road on the left, just woods. "Turn left now." I stopped the car. There was nothing there, just trees and snow. I tried to recalculate, but the GPS kept insisting. "Turn left, turn left, turn left." And then the voice changed. "Jenna." My blood went cold. The GPS had never used my name. I'd never programmed my name into it. "Jenna, you're almost there. Just a little further." I put the car in reverse and floored it. The tires spun on the ice, finally caught, and I backed down that gravel road faster than I should have. The GPS kept talking. "Where are you going? I'm waiting for you. I've been waiting." I ripped the GPS off the mount and threw it in the back seat. I drove the rest of the way, using only road signs, my heart pounding the entire time. When I got back to my rental, I checked the GPS. There was no record of the route it had tried to send me on. No saved destination. No voice commands logged. According to the device, it had been off for the entire drive. The next day, I looked up that gravel road on satellite images. It exists. It winds about 2 miles into the forest and ends at an old foundation, the remains of a house that burned down in the 1980s. The house had belonged to a woman named Jenna. She died in the fire. I don't know how to explain what happened that night. Maybe it was a software glitch. Maybe exhaustion was making me hear things. But that GPS knew my name, and it tried to lead me somewhere no living person should want to go. I threw the device away and bought a paper atlas. Some shortcuts aren't worth taking. 3 reminders that the technology we trust can be turned against us. The cold makes us feel isolated. But isolation is an illusion now. We're always connected, and sometimes that connection leads something right to our door. If you've had an experience like these, I'd like to hear about it. Until next time, stay safe out there, and maybe check who has access to your devices.